What if changing the world didn't begin with bigger plans or louder protests, but with a single moment of attention? What if the most revolutionary act you could take today is to notice where your mind is and to learn how to tend it? Buddhism's guide to self-care, change your mindset, change your world, isn't a slogan, it's a practical invitation. Quiet the assumption that fixing everything outside will fix you. Instead, start inside. Because the way you meet one person, one choice, one morning, ripples outward farther than any list of good intentions. Imagine your mind as a garden. You arrive each day with seeds in your hands, thoughts, intentions, habits. Some are nourishing, compassion, patience, steadiness. Some are less helpful, reactivity, comparison, anxiety. If you keep planting the same anxious seed, you'll keep harvesting the same worry. If you learn how to turn the soil, pull weeds, and plant with attention, the garden changes. Not overnight, not miraculously, but steadily, so that the neighbors notice the light and birds begin to linger. That is the simple promise at the heart of this guide. Change your mindset, change your world. Listen to one small scene you may recognize. You rush into a meeting, your phone pinging, yesterday's to-do list still in your head. A colleague speaks sharply, you feel your chest tighten, and before you know it, you've snapped back. Words are spoken that you regret. Later, you tidy the fallout, apologize, try to smooth things over. The external problem is fixed, but the agitation stays. This pattern repeats. Act to correct the outside, repair the outside, while the storm inside continues to brew. This is where Buddhist wisdom offers a different starting point. Not by negating action in the world, but by bringing clearer, kinder attention to how we act. The Buddha taught tools, practices of attention, ethics, and compassion that help us see what's actually happening in the mind, so our actions follow from clarity rather than from chaos. These practices don't promise instant peace or a perfectly ordered life. They are small, steady methods that support well-being, strengthen relationships, and reorient priorities. Over time, a habit of clear attention reshapes decisions, and decisions shape communities. Before we go further, a practical note. If you find this useful and want more practical guides like this, short practices, reflections, and mindful techniques, consider subscribing. I'll be sharing resources and short practice sheets that can help you apply these ideas in your daily life. Why interchange matters? It matters because the mind is not private in the way we often assume. The moods you bring to a room set a temperature that people feel. The assumptions you carry into a family conversation tune what you hear. The small anxieties you nurse each morning accumulate like micro-decisions that months later become the contour of your life. We may habitually treat self-care as a luxury, a bath, a day off, a treat. But in Buddhist terms, care of the mind is part of the path, Dharma. Dharma here is not 8 steps to success. It's the living, practical teaching that helps wake you up to clearer choices. Think of another image, a mirror. The world often reflects back what you carry. Anger looks in your mirror and sees its echo. Kindness sees its echo. When the mirror is clouded by stress or rigid belief, the reflection is distorted. Mindfulness polishes the glass. It doesn't change the world directly, but it adjusts the angle from which you meet it. Your clarity alters your response. Your response, in turn, slightly alters the world you touch. We begin then with attention, with mindfulness as the lever. Mindfulness is often talked about as a trendy tool, but at its heart, it's simple. Paying attention, on purpose, to this very moment, without clinging or pushing away. In Buddhism, the word for this careful presence is sati, mindfulness, which is the ability to see what is happening as it happens. That may sound abstract, so let's make it concrete. When you react to a text, are you reacting to the person who sent it or to an old story in your head about what texts mean? When someone cuts you off in traffic, are you responding to the present hazard or to the habit of being insulted? Mindfulness creates a small space between impulse and action. That space is where freedom begins. It lets you choose responses that align with your values rather than reflexes that replay old patterns. Here's a micro practice you can do anywhere. A 60-second breath practice that helps you find that space. I'll guide you through it. Find a comfortable position. Feet on the ground if you can. Let your shoulders soften. Close your eyes if that feels okay, or keep a soft gaze. Take a slow breath in through your nose, counting to 4. Feel the lift in your chest and belly. Hold gently for 1 count. Exhale to a count of 4, feeling the body release. Again, inhale for 4, steady and even. As you breathe, notice any sensation of thought, emotion, or tension. Name it lightly: thinking, planning, tightness. Then return attention to the breath. If your mind wanders, which it will, greet that wandering with kindness and bring your attention back to the breath. Continue this rhythm for about a minute. When the minute ends, take 1 more deep inhalation and open your eyes. Notice the space. It may be subtle. You may feel a different relation to urgency, a slight widening between wanting and acting. That small bit of space is your practice's fruit. In the next paragraph, imagine a small shift that changes the tone of a conversation. At work, you might receive a curt email. The old habit is to reply quickly and sharply. The mindful response is to breathe for a count of 4. Notice the heat. Perhaps draft a calm reply and then step away before sending. That pause prevents the escalation that the reflex would have started. Over time, that new habit builds trust rather than conflict. One mindful moment becomes a different habit. Habits become the architecture of your relationships. This is not a promise that every conflict will disappear. It is not a claim that mindfulness is therapy. Rather, mindfulness can support clarity, helping you choose actions that better align with your values. It may reduce impulsive harm and improve communication, which in social contexts often has a cascading effect. Now let's shift from attention to a broader ethical framing: self-care as Dharma. Too often, self-care is presented in consumer terms: buy this candle, take this spa day. Buddhist reframing asks a different question: what does care for the mind and body enable me to do for others? The answer reframes care from indulgence into responsibility. To be well is an ethical act because when you are steadier, you are more capable of compassion, clearer speech, and sustained action. Dharma, briefly, is the path of practice and understanding that leads to less suffering and more clarity. It includes ethical behavior, meditation, and wisdom. When self-care is seen as Dharma, it becomes part of your training, not egoistic preservation, but necessary tending so you can respond to life with presence. This is the idea of Bodhicitta, the awakened heart that seeks the welfare of all beings. Bodhicitta is both a wish and a commitment, the intention to wake up for the sake of others. When you cultivate your own balance, you increase your capacity to enact bodhicitta in small, practical ways. How does that look in daily life? Begin with a simple morning sequence you can adapt to your schedule. Wake with a moment of breath and a gentle noticing of intention. Move your body. Stretch or walk 5 minutes to bring awareness into the limbs. Eat with a little attention, noticing textures and gratitude for nourishment. Check your calendar with clarity, not reactivity, choosing the next action that aligns with your values rather than default busyness. These are small acts, but consistent practice is the gardener's patient work that over time yields a different landscape. A morning routine is not moral rigor. It's a scaffolding that helps you meet stress with more playbooks than old reactive scripts. Consider a mindful checklist you can do in 5 minutes. Breathe for a minute. Set one intention for the day. May I be patient, or may I listen? Identify one boundary. I won't check email before breakfast. And name one small kindness you'll offer someone. These micro-commitments orient your day. Part of self-care as Dharma includes saying no when it's necessary. Boundary setting is a practice of respect for your own capacity. Saying no can be an act of compassion for yourself and for others because it prevents resentments that later harm relationships. Notice the common confusion. People think saying no is selfish. Sometimes it is. More often, saying no with honesty is necessary to preserve the integrity of your yes. An ethical yes born of clarity is more useful than a default yes born of fear or obligation. This ethical shift extends beyond personal health to social responsibility. A well-tended mind is less likely to participate in gossip, less likely to scapegoat, and more able to take constructive action. The Sangha, the community of practice, amplifies this. Sangha does not have to mean a temple or strict membership. It can be the circle of people you practice with, the friend who checks in, the group that commits to a weekly walk. Sangha provides mirrors, accountability, and a field of mutual care. When you bring your steadiness into Sangha, it supports others. When others practice, they support you. Interdependence, another core theme, means our well-being is woven together. But tending the mind is also about silence and detox. Modern life is noisy not just with external sounds, but with internal chatter. Narratives about the past, anxieties about the future, the ceaseless commentary on self and other. Silence is not an ascetic absence, it's a space that allows the noise to settle and clarity to arise. We will practice a short silence later, but first reflect on what silence does. It creates creativity, it reduces the grip of compulsive reactivity, and it gives the heart room to breathe. Silence is the soil in which insight grows. Letting go is another companion practice. Attachment, clinging to outcomes, identities, or narratives, tightens the chest and narrows perception. Non-attachment, in Buddhist terms, does not mean indifference. It means holding things with a lighter hand so you can act with open-heartedness rather than being driven by fear. Consider your most persistent grip. A story about who you must be, a resentment you rehearse, a future you believe you must secure. Attachments shape behavior. They determine what you defend, what you sacrifice, and often how much suffering you endure. A practical way to practice letting go is labeling and releasing. When a thought arises that tightens you, "They don't respect me," or "I can't handle this," name it aloud in your mind. There is the not respected story. Let the label reduce its charge. Then imagine setting it down for a moment. You don't destroy the thought, you create distance. Over time, this loosens the habit of identifying completely with every passing consciousness. Mental hygiene connects to this. Just as you brush your teeth, your mind benefits from routine cleaning practices. A morning check-in, an evening review, and small corrective statements throughout the day. Try a simple evening practice. Before bed, reflect on one moment where you acted skillfully and one moment where you acted from habit. No judgment. Learn from both. Offer yourself a compassionate reframe for the moment you weren't proud of. For example, replace "I failed" with "I noticed a habit I want to change." This kind of gentle investigation is a core part of ongoing practice. It builds resilience and clarity without shaming. Let's pause here and offer another short practice, a minute of silent grounding. You can do this seated or standing. Allow your body to settle. Feel the weight of your feet or the contact of your seat. Soften your jaw, relax your shoulders. Inhale slowly through your nose, feeling the breath reach your belly. Exhale fully. With each out-breath, imagine tension leaving the body. For 30 seconds, simply notice the sensations of breathing and the sense of support beneath you. If thoughts come, notice them without following them, and return to the sensation of breathing. When the minute concludes, keep your eyes closed for a heartbeat. Then open them slowly. Notice any shift in tone, a small easing in the chest, a clarity that wasn't there a moment ago. That short silence is not mystical. It's a practical reset. It may not solve the day's problems, but it can change the way you carry them. The difference between storming through the afternoon and responding from a composed place can be as small as a minute. These practices, breath, silence, gentle inquiry, are tools. Tools work best with intention. That intention, when broadened, becomes Bodhicitta.
Bodhicitta, literally the awakened mind, is the wish to become wise and compassionate for the sake of all beings. It is not a grand private feeling, but a motivation that shapes small choices. How you listen to a friend, how you select groceries, how you speak to a service worker under stress. Transforming desire into compassion is not about suppressing desire. It's about redirecting it. Wanting to be happy is not selfish. Bodhicitta says, I want to be happy because happier people are kinder, and kindness begets more kindness. Consider two supermarket scenarios. In the first, you choose the cheapest option without thought, driven by scarcity or convenience, then feel regret when you see waste. In the second, you pause, notice your impulse, and choose more mindfully, perhaps buying less, planning better, or supporting a local producer. Each mindful choice sends a message through the system, individually small, collectively meaningful. An important caution: none of this is a method to avoid suffering or to claim moral superiority. Practices can support resilience and loving action, but they are not cures for serious mental health conditions. If you experience persistent or severe anxiety or depression, consider professional support alongside these practices. Mindfulness and meditation can complement, not replace, therapeutic care. As you begin this path, it's useful to notice the micro changes that signal progress. Maybe you snap less at a partner. Maybe you sleep a little easier. Perhaps you notice a tendency, and instead of acting on it immediately, you ask the habitual question, what do I want this moment to be? These small observations are the data points of transformation. Over time, they map into a different life. We could linger here and practice more. There are entire traditions of meditation and ethical training built to support this inner transformation. But for the purpose of change your mindset, change your world, consistency matters more than intensity. 10 minutes most days will far outstrip an intense retreat once a year, if the retreat is not met with regular practice afterwards. Small daily habits are the gardener's steadfast watering. Pause with me on a reflection. Who in your life would be affected if you were even 5% calmer, 5% more patient, 5% more present? Think of the partner who is met with steadier attention, the child who experiences less reactivity, the colleague who receives a measured reply instead of a heated one. Those 5% changes are not nothing. They accumulate. They alter trajectories. As we move toward practices that reshape desire, action, and communal responsibility, it's useful to have a simple map to guide daily integrity. One accessible map is to cultivate 3 capacities: presence, compassion, and wise action. Presence grounds you. Compassion opens your heart toward others. Wise action orients the choice toward benefits and avoids harm. Each of these is trainable. Presence is trained through mindfulness practices: breath, body scan, mindful eating. Compassion is trained through practices that cultivate empathy and heartfelt connection, loving kindness phrases, or reflecting on the shared wish of beings to be free from suffering. Wise action is trained by ethical reflection and small behavioral experiments. What speech helps now? What silence helps now? Which action is sustainable? When you line these 3 capacities up in daily life, your choices begin to bear the imprint of intention rather than reactivity. A short illustrative vignette. A teacher, tired from a long week, finds a parent aggressively questioning his method. The teacher feels immediate indignation. In the old pattern, he would defend loudly, escalate, and later stew. Now, practicing presence, he notices the heat, breathes, and responds with clarity. I hear your concern. Let's schedule a time to review this. The parent feels heard. The teacher preserves energy. Later, in a reflective practice, the teacher notices a pattern of defensiveness and explores its roots with compassion, perhaps a fear of being judged. Through small daily attention to this fear, the teacher changes how he teaches and how he meets criticism. The ripple moves from a single interaction to the classroom to the school culture. A final thought for this section: the move from the personal to the communal is not automatic.
Inner practice does not absolve you of responsibility in the world. It equips you to act more skillfully. The ripples of a settled mind reach others, but they also invite action. If you find yourself moved by what you notice, consider joining or forming a small group, a sangha, where practice can sustain you and where you can practice compassionate action together. A group that meets weekly to walk, clean up a park, or support a local food pantry channels personal transformation into social change while staying rooted in mindfulness and respect. We are only beginning to sketch the terrain. Ahead, we will explore silence in more depth, how to detox the mind from constant input and why creative clarity results. We'll step into the work of letting go and examine how non-attachment supports ethical engagement rather than indifference. We'll look at mental hygiene with specific journaling prompts and evening routines you can try this month. We'll also move toward the deeper ethical center, Bodhicitta, how to transform desire into sustained compassion that guides long-term choices, including environmental stewardship. For now, hold the garden image and the mirror image together. Notice one small seed you are tending right now, a thought, a habit, a pattern. What would it mean to water it differently today? What would it mean to weed it once a day for a week? Try one simple experiment. Tomorrow morning, before you check any screen, take 1 minute to breathe. Set a single clear intention, may I listen with presence, and then move into the day. Watch for small differences in tone. Keep a brief note in your phone, one line about how the intention influenced a moment. If the garden metaphor is working for you, carry it for the next hour. Notice when you are planting an anxious seed, worry about an email, a storm that hasn't happened, and see if you can ask a short, supportive question. Is this seed useful now? That tiny question can interrupt rehearsal and invite a more caring choice. As you experiment, keep gentleness as your standard. This path is not about strictness, but about steadiness. It takes time to change a life, yet change happens, quietly, persistently, and what begins as slight rearrangement of attention can gradually alter how you relate to your partner, your work, and your environment. The stakes are not to prove that you are better, they're to increase the capacity for care. We are ready now to dive deeper into practices of silence and detox, and to begin the work of letting go that leads to inner liberation. We'll learn specific techniques to identify attachments and to practice releasing them without indifference. We will also explore mental hygiene rituals that are small but potent, a nightly inventory, compassionate reframe statements, and a practical habit for clearing negative speech before it spreads. But before we go further, take a moment. Breathe.
Notice one quality you'd like to cultivate more of in the coming week. Patience, curiosity, steadiness, or generosity. Name it to yourself. Keep it like a seed in your pocket as we continue. The next part will draw on that quality and give you tools to nourish it into habit. Name it to yourself. Keep it like a seed in your pocket as we continue. The next part will draw on that quality and give you tools to nourish it into habit. Now we move more deliberately into silence and detox. Silence is not an absence you must chase. It is a kind of attention you cultivate. Think of silence as the pond behind the garden. When the surface is still, the depths reflect clearly. When the surface is choppy from wind, you see only muddled shapes. In our modern life, wind is constant. Notifications, to-do lists, inner commentaries replaying stories. Practicing silence is learning to calm that surface so reflection becomes possible. Begin with a pared-down ecology of input. Notice where your attention is surrendered by default. Is the first thing you do in the morning to open your phone? Do you check news feeds before you've had a single breath? Do you let the evening be filled with half-attentive scrolling? These are small habits that shape mental soil. A few practical adjustments can act like a gentle fence around your garden. Set a simple rule to keep your phone away for the first 15 minutes of your day. Choose one meal a day without screens. Declare an hour before bed as an electronic-free window. These fences are not moral tests. They are supportive structures that make silence possible. Silence also has a social dimension. Imagine a family dinner where everyone practices listening rather than trying to win the next turn to speak. The quiet that sits between words gives space for honesty and reduces the urge to fill a silence with defensiveness. You don't have to be silent to practice silence. You can be present and engaged.
The practice is about letting the reflex to react fall away long enough for deeper responses to arise. Let's practice a short silence now, a micro-detox you can do anywhere. This one is 45 seconds. Find a comfortable seat. Rest your hands in your lap. Allow your shoulders to soften. Close your eyes if that feels safe. Take a slow breath in, feeling the body expand. Exhale fully, feeling some release. As you inhale, imagine gathering the scattered pieces of attention. As you exhale, imagine them settling into the body. For 45 seconds, notice the quality of silence between each breath. If a thought appears, notice it without commentary. Not "I shouldn't think," but simply "thinking," and let it drift like a leaf on water. Keep returning to the sensation of breathing and the small quiet that opens between inhalation and exhalation. When time is up, rest your attention on the feeling of the body seated for a moment, then open your eyes slowly.
That short pause may seem trivial, but it affords a reset, a small decrease in reactivity, a little more space for wise choice. Practice it before a difficult conversation, before you answer an email, or when you notice your mind spinning. Over time, those 45 seconds become a May habitat for clarity that you can inhabit more frequently. Let's explore letting go, non-attachment, with care and nuance. Non-attachment is often misread as coldness or passivity. In Buddhist language, non-attachment means you hold life with an open hand rather than clenched fists. It means you notice desires and fears without letting them shackle your decisions. That freedom doesn't remove your commitments, it clarifies them. When you are less driven by clutching, you can act with more generosity because your actions are less about saving yourself and more about meeting what's needed. A simple practice for letting go is a labeling release exercise you can do in under a minute when you feel constricted. When a thought or emotion tightens you, jealousy, anger, insecurity, bring it into view and name it briefly. Jealousy, anger, I'm afraid. Say the label without condemnation. Then imagine placing the labeled thought on a small tray beside you. Not throwing it away, not pretending it isn't there, simply placing it down. Feel the difference between holding the thought in your fist and setting it on the tray. Repeat this for several moments, returning to the breath to stabilize. This is not about suppressing feeling, it's about cultivating the capacity to notice feeling without being swept away by it. We practice this so we can act from clarity. If you are in a meeting and you notice the familiar tightness of needing approval, the label helps, approval seeking. By naming it, you neutralize some of its urgency and can decide whether to express yourself from authenticity, from reactivity. Over weeks, this habit erodes compulsive patterns and frees energy for more considered responses. Letting go and silence together create fertile ground for ethical action. Mental hygiene practices maintain that ground. Think of mental hygiene as a daily routine for the mind, small, repeatable acts that clear away grime so insight can function. Here are 3 practical rituals you can try today, each brief and repeatable. First, a morning triage. Spend 5 minutes after waking to scan your internal weather. Notice one quality you wish to cultivate, the seed you put in your pocket. Name one boundary for the day, I will not check email until after breakfast, and one small act of kindness you'll offer. This triage aligns your attention before the day pulls you outward. Second, a midday check-in. Pause for 1 minute between tasks. Breathe. Ask, what is my next most skillful step? And then move. This prevents the habitual autopilot that collects stress. Third, an evening inventory. Before bed, briefly review the day.
Identify one moment of skillful action and one moment you might do differently. Replace self-criticism with inquiry. What was the prompt for that reaction? What small change could shift it next time? Close with a neutral, kind phrase to yourself. May I learn from this? This pattern builds awareness without shame. It trains the mind to notice cause and effect instead of habitually condemning itself. To make these concrete, here are simple journal prompts you can use for the evening inventory. What felt constrictive today?
What choice did I make from reactivity? What did I do that aligned with my intention? What is one small step I can take tomorrow to support my intention? Keep answers short, one sentence each. Over weeks, you'll have a map of recurring triggers and the small experiments that shift them. Now we turn toward compassionate attention, a brief loving-kindness practice that cultivates openness and bodhicitta, the aspiration to awaken for the benefit of all beings. Metta or loving-kindness practice is a practical method to transform desire into care. It doesn't require spiritual belief. It asks only for an intention. This practice helps soften the edges of self-centeredness and opens a channel for empathy. Try this 1-minute loving-kindness. Sit comfortably. Place a hand over your heart if that feels supportive. Take a slow breath. Bring to mind a phrase you can repeat silently. A simple structure is, may I be safe, may I be peaceful, may I live with ease. Repeat these quietly for a few breaths, directing them toward yourself. Then expand the circle. Bring to mind someone you care about, and repeat, may you be safe, may you be peaceful, may you live with ease. Next, imagine someone you feel neutral toward, a barista, an official, and send the same phrases. Finally, bring to mind someone you find difficult and repeat the wishes, noticing resistance and offering it a gentle curiosity. If the words feel empty, you can simply wish, may you be free from suffering, in your own language. After 1 minute, let the circle rest, breathe, and notice how the chest or face has shifted. This practice cultivates the muscle of compassion. It softens defense and prepares the ground for wise action. Shifting to right speech and right action, these are not lofty admonitions but micro-practices you can begin immediately. Right speech is, in essence, speech that reduces harm and increases clarity. It includes truthful speaking, avoiding gossip, and choosing words that serve connection. A practical listening practice helps right speech. When someone speaks, hold the intent to listen without forming a rebuttal. Count inwardly to 3 before you respond. This small pause often prevents reactive words and invites a more helpful reply. Another micro-shift is the tone check. Before you answer a difficult message or speak in a tense moment, ask, what tone will most likely relieve tension? If the answer leans toward defensiveness, choose a different tone. Tone modulates meaning more than content in many interpersonal moments. Practicing tone awareness is like tuning an instrument before you play. Minor adjustments yield different harmonies. Right action extends to tiny ethical choices that add up. Offer your time to an elderly neighbor for an hour once a month. Bring leftover food to a community center instead of throwing it away. Opt for a reusable bag. Each of these acts is small but communicates a different value pattern into the shared field. Remember interdependence. Small actions repeated alter networks of consumption, care, and attention. To illustrate the ripple effect, consider a story of micro-change. A woman in a busy apartment building started bringing reusable bags and politely declined plastic at stores. Neighbors noticed and asked about it. She offered one spare bag to a neighbor struggling with expenses. That neighbor began planning groceries differently, reducing waste and saving money. Later, a community group formed to coordinate food sharing, reducing surplus waste across the building. What began as a quiet practice of mindful consumption nudged a chain of collective behaviors. This is not an engineered social program, it is the emergent result of repeated small choices aligned with care. Environmental stewardship in this framework is an extension of mindfulness. Caring for the planet is not only an activist strategy, it's a way of living that reflects interdependence. When you cultivate attention to where energy and resources are spent in your life, you naturally make different decisions. Practical steps you can try. Plan meals to reduce food waste. Purchase fewer but better items. Support regenerative agriculture when possible, and adopt one new sustainable habit each month. You don't have to overhaul your life overnight. Choose one manageable change. Perhaps carry a water bottle, bring your own coffee cup, or plan a weekly vegetarian meal. Each choice trains attention and sends a small ripple through ecological networks. There is also a collective practice worth naming, the mindful civic act.
This is not partisan politics, but rather applying deliberative attention to communal obligations. Organize or join a local cleanup, support a school supply drive, or volunteer at a food pantry. These acts combine presence with practical help, embodying Bodhicitta. In social form, they reinforce that inner practice without external engagement can calcify into self-preoccupation. Conversely, external action without inner steadiness can burn out. The wise convergence is practice plus service, steady attention sustained by compassionate purpose. Now we address the heart of transformation, bodhicitta as an everyday orientation. Bodhicitta is both aspiration and activity. Aspiration is the wish for the well-being of all. Activity is the decision to act with that wish in mind.
You can cultivate bodhicitta through an intention-setting practice that rewires desire towards service rather than self-consumption. Here is a short intention-setting exercise to use each morning. It takes about 30 seconds. Stand or sit briefly, place a hand over your heart if that feels comfortable, and breathe. Silently say an intention such as, "May my actions today reduce suffering and increase ease. For myself, for those close to me, for those I don't yet know." Keep the statement straightforward and practiced. Then choose one small specific act that aligns with this intention. Perhaps to listen fully in one conversation, to refuse a shortcut that would harm someone, or to contribute time. Write that act down. Carry it as your daily compass. Over weeks, this practice slowly reorients the default motive from self-centered desire to compassionate aim. Transforming desire also involves recognizing the forms desire takes. Desire may appear as ambition, craving, or a hunger for approval. None of these are intrinsically evil. They are energies that can be redirected. Instead of allowing craving to dictate choices, ask, what is the human need behind this desire? Often it's a need for connection, safety, or meaning. When you identify the need, you can choose skillful methods to meet it that don't create harm. For instance, if approval-seeking drives you to overwork, recognize the yearning for belonging and seek connection in healthier ways. A weekly call with a friend, joining a group with shared interests, or setting clearer boundaries at work. Let's practice a short guided release for desire, a letting go mantra you can use when craving feels urgent. This takes about 30 seconds. Sit quietly. Identify the feeling with a phrase, wanting or craving. Breathe in, and as you exhale, say silently, "This is wanting." Breathe in again and exhale, "I can notice it." One more breath and exhale, "I can choose." Let the mantra be an anchor. Recognition, distance, choice. Notice how noticing reduces urgency. If the wanting persists, repeat. The practice is not suppression, it's recognition plus freedom to choose. Over time, that choice widens into a life shaped by intention. At this point, it's useful to bring all these threads together into a practical, sustainable pathway. Change your mindset, change your world. That phrase isn't a claim of magical causation, but a direction. The mind shapes patterns of behavior and attention, and patterns shape relationships, institutions, and ecological footprints. Here is a suggested 30, 60, 90-day pathway that balances daily micro-practices, weekly communal engagement, and monthly alignment with larger values. Start with 30 days of daily basics. Each day, commit to 3 small practices. Morning, 1 minute of intention setting, seed in your pocket, and 1 minute of mindful breath or loving kindness. Midday, 1 short pause before a transition, a 3-breath reset.
Evening, a 2-minute inventory. 1 moment skillful, 1 moment to learn from. These daily acts should take no more than 5 minutes collectively. The goal is consistency. Note small changes in a simple log, 1 line per day. This accumulates data and motivation. For the 60-day mark, layer in weekly practices. Choose 1 weekly action you can sustain. A longer meditation of 15 minutes, a meeting with a small circle for reflection, a microsangha, or a volunteer hour supporting local care. The weekly rhythm builds depth and social reinforcement. If you form or join a sangha, set a simple format: arrival,
Short sitting, one reflection, and one concrete commitment for the week. Keep it simple and relational rather than performance-driven. By 90 days, aim to integrate one systemic shift. This could be a change in consumption habits, reducing single-use plastics, rethinking commute choices, or shifting to seasonal food, or a decision to support a local initiative on a monthly basis. At this stage, review your one-line journal for patterns. What small habits persist? Which triggers still take you out of presence? Use that review to adjust the second quarter's plan. Celebrate small wins. Remember that progress is incremental and cumulative. Along that pathway, maintain 3 guiding capacities as touchstones: presence, compassion, and wise action. Presence grounds, compassion widens, wise action navigates complexity. Use them as a quick inner rubric when you're unsure. What does presence require here? Where is compassion needed? What is the wise next action? Before we close the practical map, one more guided practice, a short, compassionate reflection you can use weekly to connect inner change to outer care. This is a 2-minute reflection to use at the end of the week. Sit quietly and breathe. Recall a moment this week when you felt irritable or reactive. Name it without judgment. Ask, what need was present? Allow an honest answer, perhaps rest, recognition, or safety. Now recall a moment of small kindness you witnessed or offered. Notice the feeling it created in you. Make a note. One small act next week you can repeat that aligns with your chosen quality: patience, curiosity, steadiness, generosity. Close by dedicating your practice. May these small acts reduce suffering and increase ease for all beings. Breathe and release. This weekly reflection creates a feedback loop, noticing triggers, naming needs, reinforcing skillful acts. It connects personal growth to communal and environmental well-being. It keeps Bodhicitta alive by continually reorienting desire into service. As you proceed, watch for the common pitfalls. One is the performative trap, transforming practices into a new form of self-criticism. If you find practices becoming an additional burden or measure of worth, pause, reassess. Are you practicing from a place of kindness or from obligation? Reintroduce gentleness. The aim is to increase capacity for care, not accrue moral points. Another pitfall is treating mindfulness as a productivity tool alone. Mindfulness can indeed help focus and reduce stress, but when framed narrowly as optimization, it can hollow out the ethical heart of practice. Recenter intention regularly with the daily aspiration: presence, compassion, wise action. Let those guide how you use the skills. A final practical aid: cultivate a small sangha or practice partner. The social field sustains discipline and reflects blind spots. It also multiplies the ripple. When 2 people practice patience consistently, their relationships are different. When 10 neighbors adopt a practice of mindful consumption, local patterns shift. Sangha need not be doctrinaire. It can be a handful of friends committed to meeting and reflecting monthly. Make it concrete. Set time, format, and one communal action per month. As we reach synthesis, return to the garden, mirror, and pond metaphors that began our work. Tend your inner garden with small daily acts. Polish the mirror of attention so your reflection is truer. Calm the pond's surface through silence so depths become visible. When the garden is tended, you will notice how neighbors, literal and figurative, respond differently to your presence. When you are less reactive, conversations shift. When you practice bodhicitta, the simple decision to cultivate wakeful compassion, your everyday choices reweave networks of care. Remember, changing your mindset does not magically reorder outer systems overnight. It does something steadier and more durable. It alters the quality of causes put into the world: speech, choice, consumption, care. Those causes, repeated, aggregate. That is the practical promise of change your mindset, change your world. It is an invitation to patient, ethical patience rather than a claim of instant salvation. It places moral work where it belongs, in the intimate mechanics of attention and daily choice.
Before we close, let's anchor with one final guided intention-setting practice that synthesizes presence, compassion, and wise action. This one takes about 60 seconds and works as a daily closing ritual. Sit comfortably. Place hands gently in your lap. Close or soften your gaze. Breathe in deeply and exhale. Recall the seed you named at the beginning of our time together, the quality you want to cultivate. Let that seed appear as an image or a single word. Now expand. Imagine that seed growing roots into your body and shoots into the world, connecting with others and the earth. Silently set this intention. May my practice be useful. May my small choices reduce harm and increase care. Pick one concrete act for tomorrow. Listening, a small sustainable purchase, a compassionate message, and hold it for a moment. Breathe and end by saying quietly, "May this be so." Open your eyes and carry the intention gently into your next action.
If you have found this guide helpful and would like a simple companion, I've prepared a downloadable 7-day practice sheet that lays out the micro practices, journaling prompts, and the 30-60-90 scaffold we discussed. It's a practical tool to help seed steadiness into daily life. If you'd like it, you'll find a link in the description. Before we part, a reflective nudge. Who around you would be slightly changed by a 5% increase in your patience, presence, or compassion? Keep that person in mind as an anchor. Not because you must perform for them, but because the reality of interdependence means your small internal shifts are not private. They travel, like pollen, and help new sprouts appear in other people's lives. One last gentle reminder. These practices are complements to professional care when needed. If you or someone you know is dealing with severe anxiety, depression, or trauma, please seek skilled medical or psychotherapeutic support alongside contemplative practices. Mindfulness and ethical living enhance well-being, but are not substitutes for clinical care. Thank you for staying with this practice. If this message resonated, consider sharing one small step you took this week in the comments. A small ripple often inspires others more than grand promises. If you want more practical guides like this, subscribe and download the 7-day sheet in the description. And finally, carry the line with you. Change your mindset, change your world. Let it be a daily question. How will I tend my garden today? How will I clear my mirror? What small act will I choose that honors the web of life? May your practice be steady, may your heart be soft, and may your actions, however small, contribute to a kinder, clearer world.